are passing back past Megiddo, coming up on our right. The replacement batteries in the briefcase, so if it happens to you, most likely it'll happen towards the end of the trip. The way that we're going away from, this is the way you would turn and go to Tyre and Sidon. Takes you back over to where the coast is, where Haifa is today. So this is a crossroad that we're coming up to, and we're going to turn left up here, back onto the coastal highway, and continue across the Valley of Armageddon. Up here, turn left, and head across the valley to our hotel. You can see now, having completed a day, we covered a lot today. We went to Joppa, biblical Joppa. We went to Caesarea. We went to Tel Megiddo, which you can still see over there. And then we went to that first century time of Jesus tomb. So for Joppa, the main things that we covered there is that that's where the logs were brought down by the Phoenicians and traded with the Israelites, and taken up from the port there of Joppa up the main route to Jerusalem, to the building of both the first and second temple. So it was the port for the Israelites, and that's why we have Solomon using it. That's why we have Jonah going down there. That was the other main thing that we covered, is when God commanded Jonah to go up and preach to Nineveh, he fled and he went to Joppa, and he got a boat and tried to flee to Tarshish and ended up in the belly of a fish for 3 days. So then we finished talking about those Old Testament references to Joppa down at the bay, the port itself. Then we walked up onto the Tel, to the hill and the Tel of where Tel Yafo, where Joppa is today. And we saw the church up there, and we talked about there's a little bit of archaeology that's been done there. The problem is that it's been continually occupied, and you'd have to knock down the church to dig under it and everything like this. But we talked about what that church is commemorating. And so we went through both the resurrection story of Dorcas and Peter raising her from the dead, which is what got the town's attention, and many came to believe in Jesus as their Messiah. So then Peter is staying there at Simon the Tanner's place, and he's up on a roof. Meanwhile, what's been going on up in Caesarea is the angel appeared to Cornelius, told him to send for Simon, called Peter, and have him come up. So he sends men down to Joppa, and right before they get there, then God gives this vision to Peter, and he sees this sheet come down with this unclean food on it, with these animals on it. God says, kill and eat, and he says, nothing, I've never eaten anything unclean. And God says, don't call unclean what I have made clean. And then this is repeated 3 times for emphasis. And right when that vision is is over, the men from Caesarea arrive, these Gentiles, and Peter knows that he is to go with them. So they spend the night, they head out, they go up to Caesarea. Peter goes to the house of Cornelius and preaches the gospel to the Gentiles. And as they hear the gospel, then the Holy Spirit comes upon them, and we have the Jews that are with Peter, including Peter, amazed that this new covenant that in Jesus is also for the Gentiles, and so the Gentiles are part of the church. And then we also talked about Herod Agrippa the first, and how he was glorified as God himself and denied and died. We talked about Herod the Great's palace there, and how Pontius Pilate would stay in there. We talked about how Paul was a prisoner for 2 years and had all these opportunities to share the gospel with different governors and with Agrippa II. And then we talked about because that was such a major place, the birth of the Gentile was coming into the church, that it carries a lot of church history with it, and Origen teaching there, and Eusebius writing from there, and we read some from Eusebius, his eyewitness accounts of the persecution against Christianity from the Romans that took place there at Caesarea, and then we went over to where there's one thing on top of another there, and talked about the test that we would have to go through if we lived at that time, whether we were Christians or not, based on asking us, and then whether we are willing to sacrifice to the Caesar as a god, and whether we are willing to deny Christ. So we talked about that. Then we headed up to Tel Megiddo, and I know we kind of went through that Tel awful fast. I apologize for that. Look how much daylight we have left, and they close it like that. I just have never understood that. But anyways, we went up and had a geography lesson. We're driving through that geography lesson now. You can see off to our left, Mount Carmel. It's got a nice silhouette that's going down there, and then that gap that you see to the right of Mount Carmel, where Peter's office is, this valley continuing all the way to the coast. And then if you look out the other side of the bus to the right, you see Mount Gilboa over there, and if you go to the left of Mount Gilboa, this valley continues all the way to the Jordan River. So look at this penetration into this region that you have here in this Valley of Armageddon. You have Mount Gilboa there, you have Mount Moray that we're driving by right here to the right, you have Mount Tabor, which looks like an Audi belly button over here, and then we got this ridge line in front of us, which Nazareth is up on top of. That's where we're going to start our day tomorrow, is at Nazareth. And then at Megiddo, we read Revelation 16. This is going to be the site in the future of the Battle of Armageddon. And then we just talked about the Tel there, and all the different, it's one city on top of another. That is the second most destroyed city in the world at 34 destructions. And you got to have, for all the sieges that would lead to, you got to have food. We saw the granary there, the silo, and you got to have water. And so to get the point across that you got to have water, we walked down that incredible hole that they dug all the way from the top of the Tel all the way down to the water source at water level. And then we went over and looked at this first century tomb. Remember that if you know about tombs, you can immediately, an archaeologist can walk through into a tomb and immediately know if it's from the time of Jesus or not. Let me talk just briefly about a little more of the difference. If that was an Old Testament period tomb that you had gone into and looked around, you would not have seen those niches that are carved back in there. Okay, they wouldn't be there. What you would have instead is you can have burial benches in either types of tombs to lay the body out in the outer to prepare them and whatnot. So in both tombs, the bodies decompose to bones, but in an Old Testament period tomb, you have they're called repositories, these big hollowed out areas where they take the bones after the deceased have turned to bones and they throw them together in a big pile. So when you read in the Bible that somebody has died in it, it's called being gathered unto their forefathers, unto their ancestors. They are literally, their bones are being thrown on top of their parents' bones and their grandparents' bones and their great-grandparents' bones. And so they're all together in a big pile of bones in the Old Testament. In the period, in this window of time of Jesus' New Testament period, then they have these niches, and the bodies are put in these ossuaries of the rich. These are rich people's tombs. You know, all through history, most people died and they just dug a hole, throw them in there, and cover them up. So this being buried in ossuaries is connected to the Pharisees, and it is directly connected to the belief in the resurrection of the dead, the bodily resurrection of the dead. Both the Old and New Testament talk about the bodily resurrection of the dead, and so the Jews started being a little more thoughtful about how they buried wealthy people, and so they would separate them out into these ossuaries, you know, I guess to help God keep track of who's who. So we finished there, and then we related that tomb back to the Jonah story, because Jesus says, they ask for a sign. He's talking to his generation of Jews. He says, the sign that you're going to get is what's going to happen to me. And I'm going to be laid in the belly of the earth. I'm going to be laid in a tomb for 3 days and 3 nights. And then we all know what the sign is. He's not going to stay in there. He's going to raise from the dead. Think of how tremendous. There is no greater miracle in all of human history than that. And yet not many repented. And that's what he's rebuking them for. How is it Jonah goes up to Nineveh, preaches to them, they repent, and this generation is going to have that sign, their Messiah who comes, dies for them, is buried and raised from the dead, and yet not as many as you would expect turn and follow him. And so he says that those at Nineveh will stand at the judgment and condemn this generation. Okay? So we'll do a review like that daily. Talking about desert, how Israel is desert. Israel has its desert portions, but this is not desert. Does it look like desert to you?